Developers always try their best to make sure that every aspect of their game is as good as it can be and as close to their vision as possible. That being said, sometimes those who play the games have different ideas, and that's where mods come in. A staple of the community for a long time, mods have been a way for developers and fans to alter various aspects of games. This can relate to visual presentation through to the inner workings of core mechanics. And it means that mods can have a profound transformative impact on the finished product, and can even become so all-encompassing that they end up making something that feels wholly original. Relating this to Final Fantasy, mods have also been a staple in that particular community for some time, and ever since the game started to become much more available on PC, the frequency and quality of the mods has only increased. That then brings us on to Final Fantasy IX. As with a lot of buzz being created by the 2021 Nvidia leak, which suggested a remake was on the way, there's been a huge uptake in the quality of mods, and just wider ways in which people can enhance and continue the discussion, something which was epitomised by the Memoria project. The curious aspect around Final Fantasy IX, however, is that whereas Final Fantasy VII and VIII did receive official PC ports close to their original releases on the PlayStation, Final Fantasy IX did not. And when it was released in 2016, some aspects had not aged all that well. This served as a call to arms for the modding community, as they looked to fix, add, and alter Final Fantasy IX. And so, for today, we thought it would be fun to run through some of the best mods out there. So let's get right to it. Here are 7 amazing Final Fantasy IX mods that can severely enhance your experience. And to kick things off, we're going to take a look at a mod which aimed to add some spice to the gameplay. Every Final Fantasy game is full of challenges, but most are surmountable with the right strategy, a little bit of grinding, or even a combination of both. This is often due to Final Fantasy not being a series focused on delivering hard-as-nails gameplay, but instead one that is focused on telling moving and imaginative narratives within an engaging RPG framework. To that end, with careful preparation and the right equipment, each game's scariest foes and notorious superbosses can be defeated by those dedicated enough to put in the work. For those looking to up the ante, self-imposed challenges such as low-level runs are the way forward. They have long been used to add a little spice to playthroughs, and the same was true for Final Fantasy IX. But if someone was looking to up the ante even further, few challenges compare to the Final Fantasy IX Unleashed mod that was developed for the original PlayStation version of the game. The mod, which was created by Landon Ray, overhauls the game's mechanics to create something rather special. Whereas other mods might increase the challenge by simply giving enemies more health and having them hit harder, this mod takes things to the next level through meticulous rebalancing. This includes sweeping edits to enemy stats, altered character starting stats, magic costs, equipment stats, and even swapping how certain powerful equipment can be obtained, such as having the Excalibur 2 shift to being stealable from Ozma. In addition, the Unleashed mod also gives some bosses buffs like Auto Protect and Auto Shell and lowers the efficacy of resistances gained from equipment. But not all changes tip the odds against the player. The Unleashed mod also retools the way ultimate weapons function, giving them new elemental affinities for added damage while also absorbing damage from the opposite element. Such a total rebalancing of systems not only gives veterans a reason to go back and experience Final Fantasy IX again, but also gives those looking for a new challenge something they could really sink their teeth into. But make no mistake, this mod is not for the faint of heart, and only the most hardcore adventurers need apply. No matter how relaxing a playthrough may be, rapid progression can often give way to a bit of a grind in order to gain the upper hand on late game enemies. Now, while grinding is expected to reach the max in games like Dragon Quest and Pokemon, Final Fantasy is also no stranger to this time-honoured tradition. But with battle mechanics and progression systems changing from entry to entry, figuring out how to grind could sometimes be complicated as a result, as it was not always a case of just leveling up to get stronger. In Final Fantasy IX, careful planning could help to maximise party stat growth for those putting the hours in to level up, but thanks to a modding tool for the Steam version of the game known as the Memoria engine, players looking to even out their experience can use the aptly titled Flatten Growth mod to make the grind a little less tedious. The mod, which was created by MB, works by removing the more nuanced aspects of Final Fantasy IX's leveling mechanics. As a result, the Flatten Growth mod has some rather interesting effects on the overall experience. Leveling up and stat growth become more predictable and linear when compared to the base game, but the end game consequently becomes harder. This increase in difficulty is because the mod removes stat growth bonuses gained from equipment. With the mod installed, a maxed out character has the same stats at level 99 as they would have if they had no gear equipped at all in a regular playthrough. This in turn causes the party's overall endgame stats to top out lower than they would have with normal level up progression. Actually reaching max level is much easier though, and for the average player, the experience of the early and mid-game portions of the game remain mostly unchanged. The difficulty spike is saved for later on. By taking some of the grind out of the end game, the Flatten Growth mod removes the necessity for running a low-level playthrough to ensure big stat gains later on. And this is accomplished by enabling guaranteed stat totals and consistent challenge, even if the individual maximum values are lower as a result. The Final Fantasy games are well known for having their best equipment, such as the ultimate weapons or the Genji armor, often locked behind extreme requirements. For many, this statement likely conjures up memories of avoiding blitzballs while riding chocobos, dodging lightning strikes, or beating a tough optional boss. Sometimes, however, the requirements for obtaining these legendary pieces of gear were a little more obtuse and obscure. One prominent example that comes to mind is Final Fantasy XII's Zodiac Spear, which had an ultra-specific and unexplained mechanic that demanded certain unmarked treasure chests were not opened in order to obtain it, a near impossible task without a guide. In Final Fantasy IX, the hardest piece of equipment to acquire by a large margin was Steiner's ultimate knight sword, Excalibur II. Imbued with the holy element, Excalibur II was a powerful sword that surpassed even the power of Ultima weapon. In addition, Steiner was able to learn Minus Strike, Clim Hazard, and Stock Break from the sword, making it not just a damage-dealing tool, but also a gateway to some truly deadly abilities. The reason Excalibur II was so hard to obtain was because it was found at the very end of Memoria, the final dungeon, and it only appeared if the player reached that location in under 12 hours. This meant that in order to obtain the legendary weapon, the entire game would need to be speedrun, a task that was very difficult in the original PlayStation version, especially for those using the PAL version. The next-gen console and Steam versions would make this task a little easier through various boosts like encounter off and speed up options. But regardless of the method, actually getting Excalibur II in time had a serious effect on the narrative experience of the game as it forced a specific mode of play. That is, unless a mod is used to remove the timer altogether. Put simply, the remove time limit for Excalibur II mod, which was created by Zethras, does pretty much exactly what you might expect. It removes the 12-hour time limit on acquiring Excalibur II. Despite being a minor change overall, this mod allows players to remove one of the most notorious prerequisites of one of the game's best weapons, while still preserving the game's base experience. One of the strongest aspects of Final Fantasy IX was its cast. But as is usually the case with large ensembles of characters, not every character was given the same priority when it came to utility. While it was true that every cast member had a unique role to play in combat, characters like Zidane, Garnet, Vivi, and Steiner were standouts for their stats, abilities, and damage output. Unfortunately, due to this, many late-game parties looking to optimize their effectiveness were funneled into using similar configurations. The Dragon Knight Rising mod, created by Sarge R. Yong, is a straightforward mod that seeks to right the balance by reworking Freya into a much more robust and endgame ready version of herself. It accomplishes this by massively altering her abilities, even replacing and adding some new ones. By making Freya stronger and giving her abilities a boost, the Dragon Knight Rising mod therefore gives players a new reason to revisit the game. And when taking into account how much this mod changes Freya's playstyle, it could even be argued that it tips the scales a bit too far in her favour, transforming Freya into a surprisingly sturdy tank for the party. In terms of how it does this, well, the mod reduces the delay between Freya's jump command and the resulting attack by half, in addition to boosting its critical rate by 15%. In Trance, the jump command gets boosted even further, becoming the leap ability, and alongside being able to remove protective barriers like Shell and Reflect, the critical rate is increased by 33%. Freya's Lancer ability also gets a rework, recovering more MP than before and adding an HP recovery equivalent to the damage dealt. There's also a myriad of adjustments to her other abilities, such as damage buffs, added effects, MP cost changes, and even complete replacements, with her Dragon Quest technique, for example, being replaced by Akari, a physical attack that hits all enemies and can even inflict the trouble status. That then brings us on to a mod that has become a fan favourite due to the sheer quality of the product, and that mod is the Moguri Mod. As the last mainline Final Fantasy on the original PlayStation, Final Fantasy IX was a visual treat when it debuted. Like Final Fantasy VII and VIII before it, it used stunning pre-rendered, picturesque backgrounds to bring its world to life. Unfortunately, when the game was ported to PC and modern consoles, these same backgrounds really showed their age due to their lower resolutions not looking quite as fresh as they did in HD alongside the newer, cleaner presentation elsewhere. Luckily, those with the PC version of the game who were looking to relive Final Fantasy IX the way they remembered it all those years ago had some options available, and chief amongst those options was the Moguri Mod. Developed by a team that was helmed by Z Pilot, the Moguri Mod provides a major overhaul to the game's visuals. Due to how seamlessly it can be integrated into the PC version, it has quickly become the de facto HD graphics mod and one of the most recommended and downloaded mods available for Final Fantasy IX. But the Moguri Mod also does more than just simply bumping up the resolution. Using machine AI supplemented by human touch, the Moguri Mod enhances and restores the background images seen throughout the game. Not stopping there, it also overhauls the game's 3D textures and FMVs, fixing some minor bugs, and even adds a completely optional, newly orchestrated soundtrack courtesy of musician Pontus Hultgren. To top it all off, the Moguri Mod, which also includes a custom implementation of the Memoria engine, adds a 16:9 aspect ratio, classic font options, and analog controller support for fans looking for that old school feel. It means that for anyone playing the game on PC, the Moguri Mod turns Final Fantasy IX into the best version of itself. Now, while some mods aim to fix quality of life issues or alter the presentation of a game, others aim to make sweeping changes that transform the entire experience into something completely different. These changes can include anything from fan-added narrative beats to content left on the cutting room floor being added back in addition to reworking core gameplay mechanics. With regards to Final Fantasy IX, one of the best examples of this kind of comprehensive modification comes in the form of the Alternate Fantasy mod that was developed for both the PlayStation and the PC versions. This mod, which was created by Tili, aims to rebalance Final Fantasy IX to make it more challenging for returning players. But in reality, it goes above and beyond just that simple explanation. Enemies, character abilities, bosses, and status effects being rebalanced is just the tip of the iceberg, as arguably some of the more noticeable changes come in the form of ambitious narrative additions. This sees cut dialogue and cutscenes reintegrated, and the mod also allows for the permanent recruitment of Beatrix. Not stopping there, if players did opt to add Beatrix to their active lineup, she even features in in-game cutscenes complete with scene-appropriate dialogue to ensure her inclusion is as seamless as possible. When combined with the Moguri mod, Alternate Fantasy helps transform Final Fantasy IX into something well worth revisiting, especially for those who have already completed the game before. Now, after experiencing those two mods, anyone looking to get even more out of Final Fantasy IX basically only has one place left to turn if they want to keep their playthroughs fresh. And that brings us on to our final entry, Vivi's Randomiser. As a way for experts to challenge themselves and their skills, randomizers have become quite popular. By shuffling a variety of gameplay aspects from items and weapons to even enemy and boss placements, randomizers make every playthrough a fresh experience completely different from the last. Vivi's Randomiser, which was created by Remake, was designed to enhance the PC version, and it requires either the Moguri mod or the Memoria mod to be installed. And what makes it so different from the other mods on this list is that while they seek to enhance or add to the experience of Final Fantasy IX through alterations, Vivi's Randomiser looks to turn the gameplay experience completely on its head. Using the mod, players can randomize nearly every important aspect of the game's mechanics, completely customizing their particular run. This includes shuffling active and passive abilities, as well as the attributes found on specific equipment and weapons, altering names and in-game models, armor stat scaling, the starting equipment for each character, and even item locations. To make things even more fun, Vivi's Randomiser can also mix up not only the enemies and bosses encountered, but also their abilities, something that can turn a playthrough from a surprising twist to an absolute nightmare in an instant. Luckily though, if any serious issues are encountered during gameplay, the game can be reshuffled again to hopefully provide a more advantageous or at least surmountable set of circumstances. As Vivi's randomizer can make Final Fantasy IX a drastically different experience than the base game, its particular brand of chaos is not for everyone. But for those looking to test themselves and roll the dice, no other mod can compare to what it has to offer for those who think they know every single inch of Final Fantasy IX. And that, as they say, is that. Those were 7 amazing mods for Final Fantasy IX. We'd be curious to know which of them you've used, or if there are any you feel should have been featured. If so, be sure to let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Alright everyone, with that this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, The Livestream, Gregory, Justin Dent and Sukin TDK, who are super special Onion Knight supporters, and of course a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.